Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kaylina and I'm the Hex Witch, and today I've got a couple book reviews as well as my review of the new Saw X movie, which I know literally everybody else is posting about that as well. But that movie surprised me more than I thought, so we're going to talk about it today. So let's get started. Okay, so first off, I just want to apologize for not posting for the last, I don't know, since forever, because I've just honestly been dealing with just life right now and just trying to get some life stuff situated as far as like the house goes, and just I've kind of been weirdly up and down with my emotions recently, with being mad about the situation and then accepting it. And yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned that I'm going through a divorce right now. So, and honestly, honest to God, as far as divorces go, it could be so much worse. I mean, we're all coming out with a good amount of, money to restart our lives. And so it's not, and I say we because it's my husband, me, and his mother. So we were all living together, which, yeah, I won't say any comments about that. But yeah, so we're all coming out just fine. But there's been some things said that have just been kind of hurtful and just kind of confusing. And anybody who's gone through this, I mean, I'm sure, completely understand. And it is what it is at this point, and I'm not going to. I've decided the other day, I literally wrote in my journal that I was done being mad. I accepted what was going on, and really I had two options. I could either, once all this over, completely cut him out of my life and just move forward, or we could still have at least a friendship relationship, And that's not out of like desperation, as in like that's the best I'm gonna get, so that's what I'm gonna go for. That's a choice that I made, saying that yes, we still enjoy doing things together. Yes, we're still civil together. It's just the love burned out. And yeah, so anyway, that's that ordeal. And honestly, I just haven't felt overly inspired to post recently. So I just felt like I didn't really have anything to say. So, and really, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love having subscribers. That's like super cool that anybody would listen to me sit and talk about things. But YouTube's just as much for me, just to kind of document things as I, go along. Same with Instagram, Yes, I'm flattered anybody would be like, oh, that picture is really pretty. I'm gonna subscribe, just, follow her account, honored that anybody is, willing to partake in my content. And it's cool because, the internet can be so great and it can be so bad, but when you do have like a group community, like of like-minded people that you may have never met otherwise, it's really freaking cool. But on the other hand, there are some trolls, and I've ran into a couple trolls lately, and that they're not getting the credit for why I haven't been posting lately, because I honestly don't give a damn what they think. But it's just I've already been in a lower mindset recently just because of everything that's been going on. So to add potential strife onto it, I was just like, you know what? Maybe I just take a couple weeks break, and then once I feel inspired again, then I'll, post something again. And I finally got through 2 books, which I haven't been reading either. I haven't been reading, so I really haven't had anything to share because, I mean, a lot of the times I share stuff that I've been reading lately and what I thought about it and, you know, my perspective on the subject, and haven't been doing that lately. Haven't been doing really a whole lot lately, so, except for, I don't know, work. I've been taking on more hours at work too because this lady needs money. You know, it's one thing when you have 2 incomes and you have a slower schedule at work. You're like, okay, you know, it's not great, but you can get through it. But then when it's all you, yourself, and you, makes things a little bit more complicated. So, but anyway, on to the book reviews first, and then I'll talk about Saw, because I'm sure Saw is probably the most interesting out of all of them, but yeah. Okay, so the first book that I read was Catherine Steadman's The Family Game. This has been out for a hot minute, but I finally just got around to reading it. And so the premise of this is Harriet Reed, a novelist on the brink of literary stardom, is newly engaged to Edward Holbeck, the heir of a powerful family, and through Edward has long tried to sever ties with them. News of the couple's imminent marital bliss has the Holbecks inching back into their lives. As Harriet is drawing into their lavish world, the family seems perfectly welcoming. So when Edward's father, Robert, hands Harriet a tape of a book he's been working on, she's eager to listen. But as she presses play, it's clear that this isn't just a novel, it's a confession to a grisly crime, a murder, and suddenly the game is in motion. Feeling isolated and confused, Harriet must work out if this is part of a plan to test her loyalty or something far darker. What is it that Robert sees in her? Why give her the power to destroy everything? This might be a game to the Holbeck family, but for Harriet, losing might prove deadly. Okay, so, and keep in mind, this is all my personal opinion. Some people are going to pick up this book, absolutely fall in love with it. Some people are going to pick up this book and are probably going to be not enjoying it as much as they had thought they would, which is this girl. It was boring. I'm sorry, it was boring. Like, to me, it was boring. And you would think with the premise being the way it is, like it kind of, I've heard things that it was kind of like a cross between Ready or Not, the movie, you know, and then, what was the other one? I don't remember the other one they compared it to, but 2 pretty exciting things together. And I was like, yes, I'm all on board for that. But it fell so flat for me. Like, I mean, literally the only real action that happens is in probably the last maybe 2 chapters of the book. And that is it. And the rest of the time it's just kind of dragging through her trying to either listen to this tape or trying to put some puzzle pieces together, but it's not in a very exciting way. Like, hardly anything happens. And then they try to add some excitement by holding these like family events, and they're odd. They're odd, but they're not exactly like, you don't exactly feel like she's truly threatened in any way, you know, like, and I guess if, let's say, okay, so she thinks she knows who the murderer is. She thinks Robert did it, obviously. So I guess if the murderer was, I don't know how to word it, like, if the murderer was more of a mystery and like was on to her knowing about this murder taking place and like actively trying to kill her for it, yeah, that might have been a little bit more exciting. But the whole book, they say that, you know, Robert did it, but it's like there's no reason, like, you know that she believes that she's kind of scared and potentially in danger, but the way it's written, it didn't make me believe that she was really in danger. Like, And there is kind of a twist at the end that I actually saw coming because I just saw it coming, but I don't know, it was just boring. And then then it really bothered me because, okay, this lady is pregnant, which that's not the problem. I don't care that she's pregnant, even though I personally do not get along real well with characters that are just pregnant. Like, I feel like that's just, I don't know. I don't like reading about women trying to do all these epic things while being pregnant because, first of all, I think that that kind of amount of stress being put on a new mother would cause loads of problems. Like, I feel like that would be very potential for a miscarriage with the amount of stress that she was supposedly under. So I just feel like, you know, and I'm sorry, I don't want to watch a pregnant woman trying to, I don't know, struggle through the zombie apocalypse or whatever. I don't know. I personally don't get along with that. I'm not saying there is anything wrong with writing about pregnant women. Like, that sounds mean, and I'm not trying to, like, have it sound like that. For me personally, I have no interest in getting pregnant. I have no interest in having kids. So for me, reading about pregnant people, it's not my cup of tea. Honestly, though, that's my personal opinion. That had nothing to do with the actual book. But to the point that I was getting to, this woman was like literally hitting on her fiance's dad in a way. Like, openly commenting to herself that she found him attractive and then just tried to blame the pregnancy. It's like, okay, that's just it's kind of not right, you know? And then with what happens later, it feels even more inappropriate. It's like you're almost kind of having a fantasy of cheating with your husband's dad. Like, come on, that's kind of, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. And so, and they say it multiple times throughout the book that she's like kind of interested in this older gentleman. And it has nothing to do with the fact he's older. It's just the fact that you're literally getting married. You're literally having this man's child. And then you're hitting on his father. Like, gross. Just gross. So I was not a fan of that. Yeah, overall, it was just boring. I almost, like, what do book people say? Like, I don't know the acronym. It's like 3 letters of saying that you're pretty much just ditching the book. I pretty much did that because even though I had already done that with, whatever book I had read before the, the Nightingale and the Bear, whatever that book was. So I was like, no, I need to actually like stick to reading a full book. Like, I don't know if it was just me and my mindset right now, or I'm just like, nothing is piquing my interest because probably tiny bit depressed. I don't know. I feel like I'm handling it great for the most part, but when you all of a sudden just become completely unmotivated, and like I said, I feel like I'm going through a void part of a spiritual awakening, going back and forth between bliss and void. So there's days where I'm just like lighter than air and everything is great and fantastic, and then the next day I'm like have no inspiration for anything. So looked into that, which I mean, I had known the steps of spiritual awakening before because I've obviously researched that, but probably would make a video on that too because I feel like a lot of people kind of go back and forth between these stages and they're like, what is freaking wrong with me? You know, like one day, yeah, feeling great, feeling happy, everything's going my way. The next day, I just want to curl in bed and cry and, you know, just lay there like a lump on a log. So I'm like, I don't know what's going on with me, but I'm pretty sure that's the explanation. And I'm just trying to be easy on myself and roll with it right now because I don't know what else to do. But anyway, honestly, I don't even feel like I can like give this book a rating because I personally really didn't really enjoy it at all. And pretty much the whole time I was reading, I was just like, I'm bored. Why am I still reading this? Why am I still reading this? And I'm really sorry for like being so like that, because I know that every author, I'm a writer too. I haven't published anything yet, but I know I would feel really bad if somebody was just ripping apart the work that I'd spent potentially years on creating, but it was just not for me. It was not for me. So it was just slow and it really wasn't all that exciting. So I personally didn't like it, and I personally would not recommend. So the next one I read was House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. And this is a spin-off of like the 12 Dancing Princesses, I believe. And so my connection with the 12 Dancing Princesses was, of course, the Barbie movie that was made like forever ago, like in the 2000s when I was growing up. And it was the 12 Dancing Princesses, and it was super cute. And even, you know, my nostalgic self now kind of wants to dig that movie out of the abyss of DVDs upstairs and like rewatch it and see if I still think it's as endearing as I did when I was like, you know, 5. But I'm like, that's the connection I had with the 12 Dancing Princesses. So of course I was like, yeah, I would love to read another spin-off of that concept because that's really interesting. And this one was really good. I did really like this one. Same kind of concept. There's like this curse on this family. The sister had 12 sisters at one point. Now she's down to like 7, I think. And they're still disappearing and they're still being killed off one by one by one in mysterious ways. And so this family legitimately starts feeling like they're cursed. And then later, of course, you find out who's been cursing them and why. And I was able to call that just because I remembered from the movie who was behind it. And so it was the same dealio in this book. But the back of this says, Annalay lives in a sheltered life at Highmore with her sisters. Once there were 12, but loneliness fills the grand halls now that 4 of the girls' lives have been cut short, each death more tragic than the last. Disturbed by a series of ghostly visions, Annalay becomes increasingly suspicious that her sisters' deaths were no accidents. The girls have been sneaking out every night to attend glittering balls, dancing until dawn in silk gowns and shimmering slippers. And Annalay isn't sure whether to try to stop them or to join their forbidden trysts. Because who or what are they really dancing with? When Annalay's involvement with a mysterious stranger who has secrets of his own intensifies, it's a race to unravel the darkness that has fallen over her family before it claims her next. So, yeah, this one is good. Like, I really enjoyed this one. And, oh my gosh. Okay, so this author does a really great job with her descriptions of things. Like, creating this very kind of magical world in a sense. And even when they're not like at the balls and stuff, just where they live, it sounds like a really just cool kind of epic place. And you can, if you're a visual person, you can clearly just visualize what she's writing, which I absolutely love when authors do a really good job with that, because it just makes the reading experience so much better when you can almost like bring it to life inside your mind. And I'm a very visual person. I love to visualize things, and I love to almost be in that out-of-body experience of imagining that you are actually there. And she does that extremely well. She also does this, there's a few chapters in here, like kind of back to back, where it very much deals with the illusion and like almost the idea of someone going mad and not realizing what is real and what is fake. Like the line of reality is completely slurred and completely blurred. And one particular character is literally like going into madness kind of at one point, and the actual fear like was conveyed so well. And I literally thought oh my gosh, like to feel that way of not knowing what is real and what is fake, that there was a legitimate fear there that I felt. And honestly, I kind of relate that to witchcraft anyway, because when you're a practitioner, especially as you get kind of further along, like your reality does get blurred a little bit, because all of a sudden you're engaging in these senses that you've never engaged in before. And all of a sudden you're really questioning, okay, was this real? Am I just making this up in my mind? Like, is this ghost stuff real? Which I truly believe it is, because I feel like I've gotten enough proof at this point to peg it as being real. But I can't prove that to anybody. They have to experience it themselves. But yeah, between seeing energy, seeing or hearing signs of spirits, also I'm almost just positive I've astral projected probably at least 3 times now in my life, looking back, and like I wasn't actually conscious of it at the time while I was doing it, but when I awoke, like it was such a different experience from any dream that I've had or any like lucid dream that I've had, that it had to have been astral projection. But then that messes with your mind too, because you're like, oh my God, there really is like so much out there. And I've kind of been having this like crisis of, which I think is part of the awakening process as well, of like, what now? You know, like what do you do now? Because all of a sudden your mind is very much awake to all the incredible things that we can actually do, and all the incredible things that are actually out there that are far beyond us as humans, that sometimes now it feels boring just being a human living a human life, you know? And of course it's not just that, because obviously I'm a magic practitioner and I very much believe in all this other stuff, and I have interactions with spirit. You know, I work in a haunted hotel, for crying out loud. I constantly am immersed with this kind of stuff, but to the level that you can sometimes experience it when you're astral projecting or even in a intense dream state, I mean, the possibilities are endless. And so then when you're crashed back into a very physical body, I think I'm just going through a weird stage of figuring out, you know, that balance between the two worlds. And so this book, yeah, long story short, kind of hit me during those parts, because it was like, oh my gosh, I can kind of in a way relate to how Annalee is feeling. Like, what is real anymore? You know, like how much of all of this is just one big illusion, and how much of this are we projecting from our own minds? And it's a whole rabbit hole. If I allow myself to fall down it, it's a whole rabbit hole. And yeah, you do start to feel a little bit mentally insane. But I know by questioning myself that you know, I am still sane. But I'm telling you. So this one's really good. I would rate it 4 out of 5. I would recommend reading it. I think there's some other ones as well, so I will probably look into reading those at some point as well. Yeah, so quickly, I just want to talk about Saw. So we saw Saw 10 yesterday, and oh, let me tell you, those movies, I can handle gore and stuff, and I actually handled this one better than I thought, because when I had first watched some clips from the earlier Saws, it made me physically sick, like actually physically sick to watch it. And that's the empath in me. Even though obviously it's acting, that pain and feeling still like seeps inside my soul. So like, and yeah, I still somewhat enjoy watching horror movies because I'm sick and twisted like that. I don't know. But so the Saw movie, so I'd heard from a lot of other reviews that, yeah, it was going to make you be on John Kramer's side. And I was like, as if, okay, like this man is this man is off his rocker, okay? Anybody who can do what he can do to a human being, there's no way you're getting me on his side. But what's the easiest way to get you on a villain's side? Humanize them. And that is exactly what they did so well in this movie. They literally took this killer and made you feel sympathy and literally rooting for him at one point in the movie. I was literally rooting for this guy. And I was like, anybody who can tie these people into these horrific traps and make you go, yes, I'm on board with what you're doing, that's bloody genius, you know? Like, and I don't obviously condone, like, his process, but his method and his reasoning became so much more clear. Like, in the past movies before, I was like, okay, yes, I understand his reasoning, but I can't get behind it. And this one, these people deserved everything they got, okay? Like, and not to spoil the ending, but you're gonna be fucking disappointed in the ending because I know I was. So, and yeah, so there's a lot of different traps, and honestly, I can say in this one, they're all pretty good. Maybe not like the best out of all the traps throughout all the Saw movies. I feel like there's probably been some that would outrank some of these. But at the same time, I feel like all of these were on a pretty even keeled level. And so it's kind of hard to rate which one I would say was like the worst and which one would be the best. Actually, I mean, I know which one I would prefer to be in. So spoilers on some of the traps, like if you haven't seen it yet and you aren't familiar with any of the traps yet, I am going to talk about them a little bit here. So, and kind of the order that they go in. So honestly, the first trap is actually the one I would want to be in, which was the eye vacuum trap. And although like that scene was pretty quick, like it was like pretty much the opening scene. And so that was the first trap. And I don't even know if this guy actually ended up being in the trap, because I think it was kind of like John Kramer was in the hospital and he saw this janitor stealing, and he came up with this trap for this guy if he decided to steal. But he ended up putting the stuff back, and John was like, good choice, man. Way to make the right move, even though you got caught, stealing. So I don't know if this guy actually ended up being put in the trap, but they showed it as if he had been. So, but yeah, this is the one don't get me wrong, the outcome would fucking suck. Like, if you didn't accomplish your task, getting your eyeball sucked out, that would be horrific, and I hate eye stuff, so that would be disgusting. But the actual act of having what he has to do as far as like getting out of the trap, breaking his fingers one by one, like on this dial thing, I mean, yes, painful, right? Especially since in your hands, you have more nerve endings in your hands and fingertips than pretty much anywhere else in your body. So yeah, you're gonna feel the sensation potentially more than if you had to break something else. But I feel like your adrenaline would just be so high at that point that your body could handle quite a bit of pain, and you'd be able to get through it, and you'd just be able to do it like really fast. I'm like, you just turn that dial, just turn it. And I know that's easier said than done, because I'm not actually in that situation, but I feel like out of all of these traps, that would be the easiest one to not hesitate quite as much and just go for it, just do it. And so that's the one I would want to be in, because I feel like my chances of survival would be a lot higher. Because yes, you're going to have a completely like broken hand of fingers, but I do also feel like the chance of recovery is going to be better as well. Of course, I am not a doctor, so I think it would be absolutely fascinating to talk to an actual like doctor about some of the worst saw traps and see what they have to say, because the body is very resilient and it's very strong, especially when adrenaline kicks in, which obviously for all these people, adrenaline would just be rushing because you have no other choice. It's either do this and survive or don't and die. So, But at the same time, like, to what point does pain kick in so badly that a person would actually pass out? You know, like, that's what I wonder. I wonder if a lot of these traps, if these people would actually get as far as they do, because I feel like there's only so much level of pain a body can take before it kind of passes out. And then, like, the question of, like, blood loss and all that kind of stuff, and, like, how realistic are some of these? At what point would someone actually bleed out? Or at what point would someone pass out? Or, you know, these are questions that I have. And I probably could look, you know, a lot of that up. And I do feel like they do try to do some of the research, at least John does, as far as, like, how much blood a body can lose and, like, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the idea of pain, like, how much pain can someone take before they literally pass out? I don't know if adrenaline kind of balances that out to the point where the pain is kind of canceling out the adrenaline and vice versa, so you're able to stay conscious, but I don't know. But anyway, then you had, I believe, Diego's trap, which was the pipe bomb trap. So he literally had these bombs dug into his arm, and he had to use this knife to, like, dig out his arm, which honestly, kind of how I look at these traps, I'm going in the order in which they were presented, but as far as, like, looking at the traps, you kind of have to look at two different things. You have to look at what they have to do in order to succeed, and then you also have to look at what happens to them if they don't, you know? And if he doesn't succeed, he blows up and he dies quickly, right? At least I would think he would die pretty fast if he were literally caught with 2 explosions on him. And I mean, even if you had, like, your arms crossed when the bombs go off, I mean, you're gonna die. You're probably gonna die pretty quickly. So if you don't succeed, at least you die fast. But the actual process of digging these bombs out of your arm, oh my God, that would be really painful, I would think. And I mean, this guy goes to town. Like, he runs around like a crazy person for a few minutes, trying to beg John to, you know, let him go, which obviously we know that doesn't work. But then he just starts going to town, and this one's actually really gross to watch because he's literally just digging everything out of his arm. Now, what I did find interesting in some of the other reviews that I watched, which I do agree is true, is think about it. If you're cutting that deeply into your arm to get that bomb out, and you're going through all that tissue and all the nerve endings, are you going to be able to have any use of that arm at all? No. So once he digs out the other arm, then he goes right to the other one and starts digging with that limp noodle arm that is pretty much maimed and probably not recovering from. I mean, if you're cutting that many nerve endings, your damage is going to be pretty extensive, I would think. Like I said, I'm not a doctor. I mean, I went to massage school and we did take quite a few classes on the human body and how the systems of the body works. And yeah, cutting through nerves to that extent, I'm not sure. I mean, you'd have to ask a doctor for sure, but I don't know if you would be able to recover from that. And I definitely know you would not have the usage of that arm to then turn and start digging with your other arm. But that's just me. I could be perfectly wrong. I don't know. Like I said, it would be so fascinating to talk to an actual doctor and have them watch some of these traps and, like, review them and, like, go through them from a medical perspective. I think that'd be fascinating. Dr. Mike, could you do that? He doesn't know who I am or doesn't know I exist, but I do watch his channel and I love it, and I think he would do a really awesome job at describing some of this. So maybe he could post a video at some point if this stuff doesn't, like, completely appall him. So yeah, as far as Diego's trap goes, the actual act of doing it, pretty awful. What happens if you don't succeed? I mean, obviously at the end game, all these people are going to die, right? Like, I mean, I guess, I don't know. If your eyeballs are vacuumed out of your head, would you survive? I mean, I don't know that question. I feel like you probably could, but honestly, me personally, I would not want to live my life like that. So I'd prefer to just to die. But the actual process of that happening would be, ugh, no. No, 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 no. So yeah, digging it out of my arm, not great. Dying quickly in a explosion, probably better than how some of these people die. So then the next one you have is Valentina's, and hers is pretty brutal. Hers is the wire saw trap with the giggly saw or whatever. And so she literally has to cut her leg completely off, stick a tube up her leg to collect the bone marrow in a short amount of time before this wire contraption like severs her spinal cord and then eventually chops off her head. And so, and some people's complaints were, and I kind of understand where they're coming from. So a lot of these people, I mean, they actually do a pretty dang good job just doing it, doing what needs to be done, and like not giving up and just doing it. And Valentina, I mean, she does it. Like she wastes about a minute on the front side because I think she got like 3 minutes. So she did waste significant amount of time, like just freaking the fuck out, which I mean, who wouldn't, right? I mean, anyone would, but that's precious time that you have that she ended up needing right at the end because of course she didn't factor in the time it would take to get the bone marrow to go into the tube, into the machine to do the lever to get it to where it was supposed to be. So she literally like misses it by that much. And of course she dies. A horrific way of having it cut through her skin and into her spinal cord and eventually lopping her head off, which I know I talk about all this like it's just kind of, this is what happened, but it was gross. And she honestly, I mean, her body was, I mean, put through some brutality. Not only did she go through all of the pain of having to cut her own leg off, having to stuff this tube up her leg, which would be painful as well, because you've got all those nerve endings just out in the open, having to shove it up there, and I mean, really awful. And then literally the anxiety you would watch like seconds before knowing you were about to fail. And then she had also hurt her hands too because she grabbed the wire, and of course it's super sharp, and so she started bleeding from there too. So this woman went through it and she still ended up failing. So this one was probably one of the top ones that I would not have wanted to partake in, just because the amount of adrenaline you would have to get over having to actually like do that to your own body. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I could. I don't know. The next one was the brain surgery trap. That was Mateo's, and his was pretty freaky as well. Try not to use too many F-bombs on this, but his was pretty gnarly as well because he had to do the brain thing. He had to cut through his own skull and grab brain tissue out, which at the angle he had to do it at, that would be bad too because you don't really know what you're doing. And then in the meantime, if he didn't do it, he was getting electrocuted, which that would freaking hurt. And so his is up there too. His and Valentina's are probably two of the higher up ones that I would not want to go through just because of how much willpower you would have to do to be able to do what needs to be done in order to survive. And yeah, cutting out your brain, and the brain, so the brain itself does not have nerve endings in it. So the brain cannot feel pain, but obviously your head very much can. And the brain is so complex that depending on where you're drawing from, you could completely alter your state of being because obviously, as everyone knows, brain is the control center for everything, right? Motor movements, you know, how you function, how you perceive things. Like each part of the brain is in charge of that. And so, yeah, dangerous game to be playing with your brain. And obviously you hear of like back in the day, even so not super back in the day, where people would do the oh, what do they call them? They did it in like mental hospitals where they literally took parts of the brain out. I think parts of the frontal cortex, if I remember correctly, to like make somebody just be like no personality whatsoever. That's terrifying, man. So playing with your brain, that's not, ooh, it's a dangerous game to play. And honestly, this guy got it bad too, because if he didn't succeed, this Aztec helmet like shut around his face and electrocuted him to death, which is brutal because, you know, back when they did the electric chair, they, at least in movies, this is what they showed you, is that they would put a wet sponge on a person's head before they put the electric cap on, because they believed it was more humane, because the water would send the electricity straight to the brain, instantly killing them, instead of dragging it out. This guy had no water, so I'm guessing he felt quite a bit of it before he actually died. So not only did he have to go through the pain of cutting his skull open and digging around in his brain and being electrocuted, he also probably was alive for a good few seconds before he finally was killed by the electrocution. So again, not something I would want to go through. The next one, I believe, was the radiation trap. That was Gabriella's. And hers, the act of getting out of what she had to do, I feel like would have been the next one that I would have wanted to do if I had to do any of these, because she was attached by her arm and her ankle. And so she had to take this instrument and like break her ankle and her arm to get out of this trap, because this radiation dial was shining right at her face and was pretty much melting her skin off. So the fact that the radiation was involved, that's the sucky part, because if she wasn't fast enough, the intensity of the radiation just kept going up and up and up and up, and it was literally melting her face off. And so, and like burning it really bad. But if you didn't waste any time and you just instantly just go for it, odds are you would be able to save yourself from your face, you know, being as intensely hurt as it was. But she did kind of stall a little bit. And so she ended up being burnt pretty badly, as well as having two broken, you know, areas of her body. So yeah, the pain would be intense, but if you do it fast enough, she wouldn't have been burnt quite as bad. And I think just having the radiation burning on you, that would be enough motivation to just be like, okay, this is gonna suck, but if I just get this over with, then at least I can save my face, you know? So hers sucked, but I still don't think hers was as bad as the wire trap and the brain surgery trap. I still think those take the token. And honestly, the pipe bomb, having to dig it out of your arm like that and having no use of your arms after that, I still think rates over having to break a couple bones to slip out. And if you do it fast enough, then the radiation wouldn't have taken hold as much. Now, obviously, if you'd been slower like her, then I feel like it rates up on the level, because your face is getting ruined as well, which would really kind of suck. So, and the immense pain you'd feel after the fact with burn, people that go through burns, like intense burns, that is a painful healing process and not something I would wish upon anybody. Then you had your blood board trap, which this part of the movie just made me so mad. But I'm not going to give away spoilers in case you haven't seen it, but my God, oh, it was so bad. So bad. But this one, the victims were literally strapped onto this thing and blood was pouring over their face in a waterboarding type fashion. That would be pretty awful, I'm not going to lie. I still think it wouldn't be quite as bad as the other two that I mentioned, but that's still gross. Gross, first of all, in the fact that you're consuming that much blood, and I feel like that could cause a lot of potential problems down the road, even if you recovered from the trap itself. But they had levers, and so like if you pulled your lever, it pulled you back out of it, I think, and you sent the other person into it and vice versa. So it was like this tug of war game of who was being waterboarded and who was able to breathe. And it was a pretty gross scene since you knew it was blood, you know? Like the fact that it was blood, I think made it so much worse. But I mean, it would not be a good way to go. I can tell you that much. If you weren't able to be strong enough to overcome the other person to, yeah. Not a fan of that one. That was pretty gross, but I still think the other two rate higher. And then the very last one that they showed like at the end credit. Oh no, I'm missing one. So there's a gas chamber trap. So two people got stuck in this room and this gas was coming through and it was burning through their skin, and you had to either kill one or the other and stick your head out to be able to breathe. But meanwhile, you still were getting like burnt. Like, and so that one, I mean, yeah, that would kind of obviously it wouldn't feel good, right? And I'm guessing the people that had to go through that trap, I'm guessing their whole body was burnt, even through their clothes. So, like I said, burn stuff is, ooh, you really don't want to mess with that because there's just so much damage that happens deep into that skin layer, you know, into even like the nerves and stuff too, I believe. So, and then the grafting process of if the skin is too damaged, having to graft it from other places. And it can just be, the after effects of that is going to be a lot worse than the initial effects, I feel like. Besides just the amount of pain that you would be in is just not great. But I also don't feel like they did it on purpose, because the person that was involved in this trap, they did it very intentionally, but you do not feel like justice was served as well as it should have been. And so, and then the very last one you had was the disembowelment one with the end credits where this contraption has this claw thing and it was like clawing the insides out, but you really didn't get to see a whole lot of that one. You just got to hear the screaming as the screen fades to black. So, but yeah, overall, it was a good Saw movie, and I see why people were happy with it, because it, and I don't even know if I've seen like all the other Saw movies start to finish. I think I've just seen some of the traps from some of them, like, you know, the people on the internet who do the compilations of how much gore can I shove at you in 7 minutes. So I've seen some of that stuff. But I don't know. I think the rack from, was that Saw 3? I don't know. Saw fans are probably either rolling your eyes at me right now because you're probably like, no, it's this movie. But I thought it was Saw 3, but I could be perfectly wrong. But anyway, I think that one still, from me, takes the token of being one of the worst Saw traps. And that's just because, first of all, your life is in the hands of two morons that I'm pretty sure were just fighting the whole time. Meanwhile, you would literally feel every single bit of pain that your body would be going through as it twists and breaks and snaps. And oh, the sound alone on that one, like I feel like you could identify that one even from not watching it and just listening to it, because it sounds so awful. Like, you would literally feel all of it before your head finally twists around, you know, like, no, I still just think that one is brutal as heck. I mean, there's some other pretty bad ones too, but, no. So, I mean, I do feel like some of the other traps have been worse than some of these, but I feel like all of these as a whole worked really well together. And the fact that all of these were, like, there wasn't one that you were like, oh my gosh, that one was so much better than the other ones. You know, if I was stuck in a trap, that's the one I would want to do. There really wasn't that. I mean, all of them were pretty bad. I mean, I would pick the finger trap out of all of them with the eyes, just because I feel like I would have a better chance of just quickly turning that dial, doing what needed to be done, and then getting out of there. But yeah, not great. But they achieved it. They made me be on Kramer's side, and I never thought I would ever say that, but they really humanized him in a way that you you kind of truly felt like these people deserved exactly what they got, because what they did to him, conning him like that and taking away his last hope. I mean, even for a bad person like John Kramer, you still felt for him, you know, like, and he didn't miss a beat with, though, conveying that feeling of just utter destroying his last shred of what he thought he had in order to potentially survive. And yeah, their interaction between Amanda and him, I mean, they actually had this kind of messed up relationship of, you just kind of felt for them. And I'm like, which really shows you how messed up the human brain can be, in the fact that we know that what he does to people is so grotesque and so wrong, but at the same time we can still be on his side because there's that human empathetic feeling that they created for him. And compared to the real villain of this movie, yeah, you almost side with him easily over this other person, because this other person is so awful, just awful human being, about as bad as you could possibly get. So yeah, but that's kind of my review of Saw. Obviously, I didn't go into like filmography and all of that kind of stuff. I'll leave that to the professionals. But as far as like a moral standpoint, and as far as like as much of the medical stuff as I can understand, that's kind of my review. And yeah, I actually was able to eat like popcorn and stuff through it, which I was surprised, because I was hesitant on getting anything, because I was like, I'm gonna throw up, but I actually didn't, so all good there. But all I'm saying is they better make another Saw movie, and they better right the wrong they did at the end of this movie. Like, but I'm gonna leave it at that, because this video ended up being longer than I even thought it was going to be. So those are my reviews of the 2 books and of Saw X. If you like my content, be sure to like and subscribe. I'd like to say I try to get videos out every single week, but right now I'm definitely in a transformation period, and so that may not always happen, but I try to get them out whenever I can. And so please continue to follow me. Please continue to like. If you've seen Saw, or if you've read any of these books, comment below on your opinions. I really do want to eventually get to the point where we have a community. Like, we have a little community of conversation going. Now, please don't troll anybody. Like, don't be that person, because I will delete your comment. But I really do want a community of people like, we can have conversations. Like, that's what I eventually would love to get to, because selfishly I want more people to talk to that are of my like mind and are interested in the same things I'm interested in. And so yeah, like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. As always, stay witchy, and I will see you next time for another video. Bye.